This is weird. I do a lot of storytelling. I think many of you probably know I make my life in storytelling. But it's almost never my own story. And it's almost never raw, unrehearsed, drunk. Okay, many of you in the room probably know it's sometimes drunk. So the theme, I mean, what a deceptive theme, you know? It's one of those that it's everything and small, could be narrow. Hindsight, it's so often just leads us right to the lessons, right? The lessons that, oh yeah, that's the lesson I learned. And I think what I'm learning really actively here tonight is that sometimes we learn and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we should say, damn it, I should learn that I shouldn't put my name in a hat. What were the odds that they would draw both me and David? 100%. God damn it, I should play the lottery. So immediately in hindsight, you know, everything in life is hindsight, right? David said that tonight. Everything in life is hindsight. You have all these stories that have accumulated over your life. And some of them are further distant, further back, and so there's a little haze there sometimes. And some of them are more immediate, and you're still processing what you're learning from it. And so it may or may not actually be a story yet. You're not sure yet if it has an end. So the story that I wrote on the paper was called Never Use Email If Your Answer Isn't Yes. And it's really interesting because it feels like this has been a theme in my life, actually, for the last several years. And I don't know if it's partly because of the position I hold. I think that's part of it. I think it's partly the phase that we as a culture are in terms of how we are learning and relearning to communicate with one another. It's strange, I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm really grateful for this microphone and this room of people who are to some degree judging or not judging what I get to share with you. Because verbal communication and eye-to-eye communication are becoming ever rarer and harder to do. And I think partly because they're rarer, it's actually more important. And doing it genuinely, doing it honestly, doing it authentically, even when it's hard, even when the message isn't yes, is what we all have to learn right now. So that's just my introduction. Sorry. So sadly, God damn it, I have more than one instance of this lesson being important to learn. But the hardest and most still just raw, really, really hard lesson for me is sort of how to lose a friendship in 10 emails. How to absolutely destroy maybe one of the most deep and immediate and honest friendships that one can have in about 10 emails. And it's still really real for me. And the healing is still coming. And it's almost as if the story of the circumstances are not that important. It's the fact that it was happening over email instead of face-to-face, instead of us together processing all the difficult stuff. I mean, it was all the difficult stuff of life. For those of you who know, I run a theater, and it was involving a dear, dear friend who was involved in a show. So for me, kind of the height of what's at stake, putting on a really good show about really tough stuff, and this person having the amazing talent and depth to play that role in a way that no one else could. And me casting her at a time when her father was dying. A time when she needed not to be distracted by a play. When she needed space and when she needed time to be with her family. And I negotiated it a lot through email. So did she. You know, there's a certain amount of this that we owned together, a certain amount of the responsibility for how difficult it was that we did through separation by not being in closed spaces together for a period of time, which you should know is really unusual. For about 7 years, you would rarely see the two of us apart. And in fact, we were together every single day for at least an hour and a half, exercising. You ladies in the room know what stays on the track, what says on the track stays on the track, right? What you say, walking the dog, stays out there walking the dog. An intimacy that is a sisterhood that we both distanced ourselves from for that period of time that was really, really difficult. And now I go, holy crap, duh! Isn't it during the difficult stuff that you should not jump into the frickin' virtual world to deal with that? That is the time you should go ahead and walk the track and be blubbering idiots together. Even though everybody at the Y is going to stare at you. And so my hindsight is that I learned to trust my instinct, to trust my intuition about being present with people, being in a room, and as much as it makes a lot of, I think particularly Fargoans, bless them, uncomfortable, in physical contact with people, that's the only way to actually deal with tough stuff. Email is not the way to do it. In hindsight, there's absolutely everything about that trajectory of that particular story that I would do differently. In hindsight, I repeated the story with yet another person. Not quite to that degree. The second person was kind of ready for it, you know. But I hope that in hindsight, we can take that lesson of being a little bold, like this asks us to be. And if an email isn't right, first of all, if an email isn't right, a text is really not right. And sometimes it's okay to get up from your desk, to leave your building, to get in your car, to get out of your pajamas or not, and drive across town and stand in front of that person and have the conversation about what their needs are, because at the moment it appears your answer can't be yes. But that's because you're sitting behind your computer and it feels easy to say, well, until you're standing across from the person and perhaps touching them, you don't know what the compromise is. You don't know what their yes and where that meets your yes and. Thank you.